Welcome, everybody. So quick housekeeping item, since our regular chair and vice chair are both absent tonight, we're going to, according to the bylaws, we need to do a quick election for an acting chair this evening. So could I get somebody to nominate a chair for the meeting tonight? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Davis.
Can you hear me now? I just want to be sure. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Commission's members, staff, and guests. Multiple staff members are here today to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly and that all applicants and members of the public are able to participate in the meeting at the appropriate time.
If you're here today and would like to speak about a case, please provide your name clearly into the microphone, and please be sure to sign in either at the back of the room or at the podium for documentation purposes. If you're here today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment. And I'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Causey?
Present.
Mr. Cook? Here. Ms. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Harp? Ms. Hartz?
Present.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
And Mr. Tupper.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time does not include any questions asked by the Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns at the intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. The administrator has a timer and will make presenters aware of their time when their time has been expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There have been no changes since publication.
The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion or vote. Examples of such items include approval of the site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, you must speak up at the consent agenda when the consent agenda is read. Then that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and read through the consent agenda. First is the approval of the October 13th, 2022 minutes. Second, under future land use map amendment and zoning map amendment for pending annexation, we have case number 2, Annex-2022-0029, 7106 Broad River Road. This is a recommendation on assignment of land use classifications of community activity corridor and assignment of zoning of office and institutional district with a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as neighborhood medium density in a priority investment area and zoned NC by Richland County. The next case under interim future land use amendment and interim zoning map amendment for pending annexation is case number 3, Annex-2022-0028, 1921 Pineview Drive. Request recommendation on assignment of interim land use classification of Urban Edge Community Activity Center and assignment of interim zoning of General Commercial District with a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as neighborhood medium density and a neighborhood activity center and zoned M1 by Richland County. Under site plan review, case number 4, S-Plan-2022-0016, 26.58 acres on Research Drive. Request site plan approval for the construction of a 36-unit multifamily apartment building called Point Grand Phase 2. The property is zoned EC, Employment Campus District. Case number 5, pardon me, S-Plan -2022-0017, 1.8 acres on the 2500 block of Atlas Road. Request site plan approval for the construction of a road, Harmony at Congaree Point. The property is zoned RM2, residential mixed. We have a street name request, case number 6, SN-2022-0004. Name streets within the Bull Street Plan Development, Nash Street and Hilliard Street. The property is zoned PD, Plan Development. Under future land use map amendment confirmation, case 7, land use map amendment, LUMA-2022-0005, 8325 Old Percival Road. Request to confirm the future land use classification of Urban Edge Residential Small Lot. The property is currently assigned interim future land use classification of Urban Edge Residential Small Lot. And under the zoning map amendment confirmation, case 8, ZMA-2022-0016, 8325 Old Percival Road. Request to confirm the zoning of residential mixed district. The property currently has an interim zoning of residential mixed district, RM1. And that concludes the consent agenda this evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public here today who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? If so, please speak up now. When the participating, please state your name clearly into the microphone for the minutes. Hearing none, do I have a motion and second to accept the consent agenda subject to all conditions contained in the case summaries?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion to approve the minutes from October 13, 2022.
It's been moved in second that we, is there any further discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Thank you. Staff, please call the first case on the regular agenda.
The first case on the regular agenda is item 9, which is Annex 2022-0027, 3800 Overbrook Drive and 616 Suber Street, TMS number 137080501. And this is a request for a recommendation on the assignment of an interim land use classification of Urban Core Residential Small Lot, UCR1, and assignment of interim zoning of Residential Mixed District, RM2, with a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as mixed residential, high density, and zoned RM HD by Richland County. As I've mentioned, this is a pending annexation, and the Planning Commission is tasked with making a recommendation on the zoning.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? If so, would you come forward and state your name for the record? Are there any questions from the commission that we would have concerning this item at this time? Hearing none, we'd like to hear if there's any comments from anyone in the audience who'd like to speak. If so, please come forward, state your name clearly into the microphone for the record, and limit your comments to 2 minutes, please.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
interrupt you for just a second? It's been brought to my attention that the motion to approve the consent agenda was stated as a motion to just approve the minutes. So if we could redo that motion, please, and articulate that it's for the entire consent agenda, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We will now entertain a motion then to accept all the items on the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second to accept all consent agenda items for this evening. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll go back to the public comment concerning item number 9 on the regular agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to speak concerning this item? If so, will you please come forward at this time? State your name into the microphone, and for the record, and limit your comments to 2 minutes, please.
Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Robert Duddick. I'm an attorney in town. I live at 3850 Overbrook Drive with my wife, Valerie James, who has sent in some comments to the commission on this project. We've lived there since 1986. My wife was a school teacher in Richland District 1 for 41 years at Gibbs Middle School. I want, from the beginning, maybe just thinking much like a lawyer, I know what's going on, your limited scope here today, but I do want you to know there is substantial opposition to this project at 3800 Overbrook Drive to put on 31 townhouses or apartments, call them what you want. We live 4 blocks, 4 houses down from this. This would cause substantial traffic problems at Rosewood and Kilbourne, which is half a block on Kilbourne until you get to Rosewood. I leave for work about 7 every morning. The traffic's already bad. Understand from Michelle that there was a bad accident again this week, as I understand it. A lot of traffic problems. 31 new apartments would cause substantial water problems, which also already exist with sinkholes on Overbrook Drive. Now, there are probably 4 or 5 apartment complexes already on Overbrook Drive. We have done our share and more for housing in the area, for multi-family housing. This literally will destroy this neighborhood and this Overbrook area and cause very dangerous traffic if this is allowed to go through. So from Jump Street here, I just want you to understand, as we get started, and in any future meetings, there'll be a lot of people up here to protest this project. It's ill-conceived, as my wife put in her comments to this commission, and please understand that going forward. This is a boondoggle, and I hope this commission gives it various strong consideration, and ultimately that you do not approve this project to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name's Whitney Denton, and I'm here to speak in regards to the development on Overbrook and Suber. Mr. Bowers and his developers submitted wanting to annex based on Chapter 4, page 32 of the Rosewood 25-year plan with walkability and improved and maintained tree canopy, as well as closing donut holes. What he left off in that was Chapter 3, page 2, image 3.2, which is 927 Suber Street, which is a brick single-family dwelling. His build at Montgomery, 5 townhomes, look like Cold War condos. They don't fit the character of the neighborhood. This will not either. He also didn't address Chapter 3, page 12. Speed was an issue 11 years ago when this plan was written. We had a pedestrian struck where his Cold War condos are at Montgomery and Montgomery and South Kilbourne. This weekend, a pedestrian was struck. Lack of sidewalks. There was a deficiency in pedestrian accessibility in the Rosewood 25-year plan 11 years ago. It also lists lack of sidewalks, a substantial tree canopy decrease when you enter South Kilbourne. This is going to take out no less than a dozen mature trees, not to mention the 14 acres on South Beltline, which the plan specifically says is the bulk of our tree canopy. They've already taken those out. Chapter 3, page 16 talks about the number of crashes on Rosewood at South Beltline, in addition to Plowden at South Kilbourne. I come home now on Beltline to Devereaux or either South Kilbourne, and I drive through Shandon and Heathwood because I won't turn left off of Rosewood onto South Kilbourne because I'm going to get hit at this point. Also, I asked where he was going to put the dumpster corrals when he presented at the meeting. There's no way a dumpster can be lifted in those four corners. I think they want to use roll carts, which would mean that little stretch of sidewalk he's proposing will have 31 trash cans every Thursday and 62 on the 2nd and 4th. This is not a welcome development. This does not fit the character. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Crook, and I live at 922 Suber Street. I've been an owner there since 2006, and I'm concerned about the size of this proposed development, that it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood, and that it doesn't sort of fit in with maintaining property values for the owners of homes that are in the neighborhood. As an earlier comment, that there are already a lot of multi-unit housing developments on Overbrook, but Suber begins to be more residential near the park. There is a concern about parking for the ballpark, Valencia Park, and the children's safety around that area, as well as the numerous incidences and accidents that have been reported as well. I'm also sort of questioning that as I read the plan for the mixed-use area, that moderate density development is what I understand is being said, and I think 31 units exceeds sort of what is a moderate density. The plan does say for residential development that allows single-family, two-family, and townhomes, and medium-scale multi-density dwellings. So I'm concerned about the size fitting into this, as well as the plan goes on to say that buildings should be located close to and oriented towards the street. These all turn into the parking lot. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Michelle Huggins, and thank y'all for letting me speak. As the president of the South Kilbourne Neighborhood Association, we have been visited quite frequently, it feels like, with new builds such as what is being described now. This particular area cannot withstand approximately 31 roll carts being out on Suber Street, and I don't believe they would be able to be on Overbrook. Specifically, one reason why is there is only a partial area there. When people put their trash cans out, it makes that two-lane road go into a one-lane road. This is something we visit quite often. People do park on right in front of their houses. There's only approximately 5 to 6 houses from Overbrook and to Montgomery on Suber Street. This affects quite a lot of driving through there. In regards to Overbrook, the biggest lot that's across from where he is proposing is a church parking lot. The last time I spoke with the preacher, he said that they would not be allowed to park in their in their parking lot. He quoted during our last meeting that there were 62 parking spaces. When I counted the spaces that were on his diagram, there was 52. Where would all these extra people go? When individuals have company come over to see them, they would have nowhere to park. Where are they going to typically go? They'd go to the church parking lot. More than likely, they would probably be towed because that would not be their assigned parking spot. Being as someone who has been around quite a few new builds, large community developments, it is horrible what parking situations occur when there's not enough parking spots. I realize that this is about annexation, but we also have to look at the overall, how it will affect our community. And this particular area does need to have a traffic study because it will affect us. We have had, just last week, we did have an individual hit, and it's because he's wanting to put a sidewalk in. That's just going to be a short-term sidewalk because there won't be a continuation after his little sidewalk area is there. It's not going to continue down the road. They're going to be still walking out into the street. I appreciate your time. I hope y'all all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Do we have any other public comments from staff?
I do want to acknowledge for the record that we did receive a couple of letters in advance. So Exhibit A was forwarded to you all yesterday. We had an email from Luann Cook and also an email from Valerie James and Robert Dudek. And then since the digital emails went to you, we had two other emails which you all have hard copies of up there. We had an email from Dan Prince from today. So that's Exhibit B, if we could just acknowledge that for the record.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners? I guess we'll have to propose those to the staff at this time, if you have any questions.
I do have one. Is there plans to do a traffic study?
At this time, the request before you is the zoning for the property. I am not certain if a traffic study would be required by the city traffic engineer for the development, but it is certainly something that could be at the discretion of the developer or to some extent you as a planning commission when this project would come before you for site plan review.
Okay, yeah.
If there's a development on the site, we don't have an application at this time, but if there was a development that required site plan review, yes.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, then I would like to entertain a motion. Call for a motion at this time. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
The next item on the regular agenda is case number 10. This is a zoning map amendment, case number ZMA-2022-0017 at 621 Amherst Avenue. This is a request for recommendation to rezone the property from residential two-family district in the Shandon Community Character Protection Area Overlay District to Neighborhood Center Corridor District, NAC.
Is the applicant present for this particular agenda? Would you come forward, please? State your name and also provide a brief summary of your request, and please limit your presentation to 10 minutes. And speak into the microphone, please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Davis and the members of the commission. Appreciate your time today. My name is Mark Timms with Garvin Design Group, the architect hired by Jeb Zoller, the client for this project. He is in a due diligence phase for this project. Therefore, we are studying this analysis, and what came through that due diligence period thus far is the distinct nature of one of the two parcels. The due diligence purchase involves two parcels, one on facing Divine Street just north of this, and the parcel in question, the Amherst Street property. If you'll notice on this particular map, that parcel is in a unique position in its zoning distance off Divine Street. It's the one RD parcel that literally kind of jumps into that commercial zone, reaching into what is kind of a precedent that's been set for a depth off of Divine Street. As such, it lends itself to some rather unique complications that affect not just the property on Amherst, but also the adjacent parcel, which again is a package purchase for our client. Starting with the Amherst property, there's currently a residential structure on the site. It is inhabitable on the residential section of the house. The bathroom and kitchen kind of have sunk down through into the crawl space, and it is not a livable structure on that side. The wall on the south side is actually kind of falling away from the main structure. We've, both myself, a structural engineer, and a contractor have looked at the property and do not feel in terms of the value of replacement or renovation, it is something we would recommend to our client that they undertake. The value of the structure is less than the value of what it would take to bring it up. There is a small piece of the structure, a porch, that's been enclosed on the north side where a commercial, an engineer themselves is using it as an office space. Again, not compliant with its current zoning. To understand this property, you also have to look at the Divine Street property because they've been utilized together over the last 30 years. I actually worked across the street from this for a number of years and saw this activity then. It still maintains today. The rear yard of that house is basically the parking lot to the Divine Street property. And to understand that is to know that the Divine Street property is really over built for its land. If it were not using the backyard of the Amherst site, it would not be able to park cars off-street. It's not a requirement under this zoning, but certainly the neighbors and Divine Street benefits when that can happen. It's not feasible for that lot. So therein lies the basic tenure of our request. Combining or shifting the residential lot to NAC, which again consistent with the kind of datum line that exists off of Divine Street, would allow for combining the two lots to one NAC zoning, and would allow us to make a design that can be beneficial not only to Amherst, but also to Divine Street. We could then integrate those two properties together and really be a good fit for both streets. We've been working with the neighborhood and their stakeholdership. We will continue to do so. Plan on presenting to them in front of on Monday. I know they've sent you a letter as well. Our intent is to pursue that as far as it can go and to be friendly neighbors to them. Jeb, our client, intends to be a tenant in the building on Divine Street, so it's in his best interest to work through that. He currently is in a small space across Divine Street now and work down the street from it. He lives in the area, so he's a very invested stakeholder in this as well. Bottom line was we see the best benefit for everyone is to build consistency with the Divine Street corridor with the NAC zoning. All the parcels in that area are that, except for that one, north of that kind of datum line. And we know from our initial studies that we can really improve not just the Amherst site, but the Divine Street site too, through that combination. Certainly available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners that we have for the applicant or staff before we go to public comment? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will first hear from the audience, and anyone who'd like to speak, please state your name clearly into the microphone for the record, and limit your comments to 2 minutes. If you'd come forward, please.
Madam Chair, while we're waiting for people to come up, I did want to acknowledge that there was a letter received today that you have on the desk from the Shandon Neighborhood Council. So that was a hard copy that was provided to you today.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name's Mike McCauley, and I'm here with my colleague Judy Anderson. We are members of the Shandon Neighborhood Council, and we came today to read the letter that staff has provided you, and appreciate the opportunity. I'm the chair of the Traffic and Safety Committee of the Shandon Neighborhood Council, and Judy is the chair of the Code Enforcement and, the Zoning and Code Enforcement Committee. The Shandon Neighborhood Council has been invited to support this request, and we write on behalf of the Zoning and Code Enforcement Committee and the Traffic and Safety Committees as you consider recommending this request on your agenda today. Mr. Zoller of Sage Real Property Group contacted the Shandon Neighborhood Council on October 7th to provide an overview of the application and invite the council's support of the request in advance of your meeting today. Representatives of our committees met twice with Mr. Zoller and the applicant's architect, Mr. Timms, who just spoke, including a site visit to walk the property with Amherst Avenue residents who reside immediately adjacent to the property in question. Mr. Timms and Mr. Zoller presented information detailing the request, answered extensive questions, and received feedback from the adjacent residents and committee members present. The Shandon Neighborhood Council serves Shandon by working together with neighbors, community leaders, and government officials to address important issues affecting our neighborhood. The council's next regular meeting is Monday, November 14th at 6:15 p.m., and the applicant's request has been added to our agenda for discussion and action. Mr. Tim and Zoller have been invited to present on behalf of the applicant and to receive additional input from Shandon residents and council members. My colleague will finish reading the letter.
Thank you. As part of our commitment to transparency and desire to consider fully the public input of the residents, we represent our committees, do not take a position and will not take a position on the applicant's request in advance of the Commission's November 10th meeting. However, we want to recognize and commend the applicant, Mr. Zoller and Mr. Timms, for their interest in investing in our neighborhood, their proactive outreach to our neighborhood council, and their willingness to present their requests, answer questions, and consider the feedback of residents who may be impacted. The Neighborhood Council intends to consider taking a position on the request at its November 14th meeting and will forward a letter to the Commission and the City Council expressing any position taken. We note the request in question is to rezone the property, and if approved, a zoning variance or variances may be requested at a later date. The Neighborhood Council and our committees reserve the opportunity to take a position on any separate request and will further communicate that position to the Commission, City Council, and other city officials at that time. Thank you for this opportunity for us to provide input on this request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who'd like to speak? Do we have any public comments coming in? Only what we have?
Yeah, we just have what we provided.
All right, thank you. Are there any follow-up questions from the commissioners to the applicant or to the staff? I'd like to call for a motion at this time.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve ZMA 2022-0017, the recommendation to rezone the property at 621 Amherst Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second that the zoning text amendment be approved. All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Motion carried. Staff, I think we have one more motion.
Right, the next item on the agenda tonight is a request to amend Chapter 17, Article 4 of the Columbia Code of Ordinances to add provisions governing smoke or vape shops, and Article 9, definitions and measurements, to add definitions concerning smoke or vape shops. And just some history on this request. City Council, at its October 4th, 2022 meeting, passed a resolution referring to Planning Commission a text amendment to add regulations related to smoke or vape shops. This action came after discussion and study in the Council Public Safety Committee. The amendment will add definitions and a conditional use to govern the establishment and operation of smoke or vape shops to address the negative impacts a proliferation of these businesses can impose on the community, while providing a reasonable number of areas for them to locate within the city. The new conditions include a requirement that in the districts in which these shops are permitted to operate, that smoke or vape shops locate no closer than 1,000 feet from a public or private K-12 school, child daycare facility, youth center, recreational facility, park, church or religious institution, or community center, or another smoke or vape shop. And so just kind of to explain, the districts that these would be conditionally allowed in are the NAC district, CAC, RAC, DAC, GC, MC, and LI districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for this request?
So this was a unanimous resolution by City Council.
Okay. Are there any questions then from the commissioners for staff concerning this request? Hearing none, I'd like to call for a motion at this time.
Here, but I don't know if we have any public, I don't know if we called for public comment.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Do we have any public comments? Other than the one that was already read?
I mean, we haven't received anything. I just didn't know if there was anybody in the room who was here
Okay.
to speak about this one.
Is there anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak concerning this request? If so, please come forward at this time. Hearing none, I'd like to call for a motion concerning this request.
I'll make a motion to approve TA 2022-007, request to amend section 17.42.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second that this request be approved. All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Motion carried. Is there any other business that we have before us this evening?
We do have just a little bit of other business. I'd like to acknowledge Latrell Hartz, because this is her last Planning Commission meeting. Latrell has served for, more than 2 full terms, because she stuck with us while we're waiting for another appointment. So we just want to thank her for all of her years of service, and just thank you. And then also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Goodlett, who is going to be our new member. He's here tonight to observe, and he'll be serving as a seated member on the Planning Commission in December. So just wanted to kind of acknowledge that transition and thank Latrell. So, and that's all we have for other business tonight.
Okay, thank you. And welcome,
you.
Mr. Goodlett, and goodbye. We're going to miss you. If there are no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Meeting is now adjourned.